Wait, should I be like Megan? You don't talk, I don't talk. Hmm? You know better than that. I'm not talking because I'm eating, duh. I want to know what everybody's thinking tonight. Well, hello to whoever's here. Welcome to the live stream. What I just got done saying is, should I be like Megan Cole and say, if you don't talk, I don't talk? Hmm? No, that's rude. That's extremely rude, right? The reason why I wasn't talking is because I was eating, and I still am. But I built this fire for you. Hmm. And, well, we all know what a deep subject this is. So if anybody thinks this is going to be a light live stream, it isn't. It's going to be heavy. I'm going to smell like darn smoke by the time this night's over. Should I throw another log on the fire or not? There's two on there right now. Okay? It's because I'm trying not to be rude and talk with my mouth full. I came home and had to fix the gate. Or the fence, I should say. My Kylie dog got out twice. Yep. My Kylie dog. Fuji little mooch. And there's nothing little about him. It doesn't do justice for that moon that's up there right now. Okay. So we'll get started in a minute. Really started because I'm still eating my salad. And I'm gathering thoughts, just so you know. Jade said something very important last night and today. Jade said something that, well, of course I've considered it. The only trouble is, if everybody puts in their 2 cents, will it bring us closer to the truth or farther away? That's something you have to ask. I mean, if you're going to try to figure something out, right? Is it complicating things or is it helping to sort out and get to whatever conclusion that we're trying to reach, right? Which is to find the truth. So in other words, if we all put our heads together, are we able to research and review and uh, what's it called? Come to any conclusions, in other words. Are we able to do that if we put our heads together and focus, right? Or is it going to make things more complex and harder yet to sort out? Because normally in life, you start out with the puzzle, okay? You have to look at the puzzle first, right? You have to kind of look at it, right? From outside the box, and you know all the pieces are in there. And you're like, I don't know, bro. How we're gonna put this damn puzzle together? Because look, you have the center, you have the edges, right? Then you have the different colors and the different sections of the puzzle. So what where are we getting started on this puzzle, right? I made myself a homemade Bloody Mary. I don't know, you probably can't see it with the cup that I brought from Truckee, California. But no, I'm being very serious. Yeah, because look, it's a complex situation. It's not an easy fix, right? We're not gonna find the answers like it's like a mathematical equation, and you have to be almost as methodical as you would be if you were trying to solve a mathematical equation, right? Mm. I'm gonna go in there and see what there is to cook, because now I'm hungry. Or I'm eating salad, but that's not all I want. I'm sure there's some steaks or hamburger or something in there I can make. We'll get to that. But I gotta find my ass a chair. Oh yeah, and I fucking flipped off Megan Cole today. Oh yeah. Breaking open my brand new chair. Look. My brand spanking new chair is badass. Look, it's even red. It's cute, huh? Yeah, it's cute. Q. That's right, Q. Let me walk back over here. Well, plus I'm trying to figure out what the F is wrong with this fire. Look, it keeps wanting to go out. Everybody knows I'm not putting up with it. I think it's because the wood's still kind of wet. Suppose if I got a fan on it, huh? It would just go. Bet you. Okay? I know how to make that bitch function. Try not to have to overexert myself. But I really want it to get going because I want to warm up next to it. Okay? But for now, we're just going to be cool. And start this conversation because it might take a while. We might be here a while. Because I want to pick at everybody's brains. I mean, if you're going to interact about it, you don't have to, but you can just listen if you want, right? Conclusion, we're not so scattered because I feel we're very scattered in general. And scattered is scattered, right? You don't have any concrete anything. It's just in limbo. Hold on, I gotta find an olive in this glass. I need an olive. And there's bacon in there somewhere too. Because when I got home from Truckee, damn California, I made dinner for my husband. You know, I made him. Well, he already had something in the oven, but steak covered with bacon. Toast. 3 eggs with melted white cheddar cheese. And everything bagel with butter. And a White Claw. Anyways, so was the full moon last night or is it tonight? Does anybody know? Interesting. I'm not really sure what to think about the three people that are here right now. What's up, anyways? You don't have to talk to me. You can just listen. The thing is, every time I go to trucking, I come home and I'm like, man, that's a trip, dude. You learn new things all the time, right? You're just like, man, you talk to people and this, I want to talk about this because when you're talking to someone and you don't know how to start the conversation, right? And you want to talk to them about something very important, but you don't know them. So the difficulty is in the approach and in the initial interaction that you may have with any particular person, not knowing what their personality is like, how they are, what they'll think, what they might say, right? And so you're kind of like a little bit careful, but at the same time, you just let it out because there's no way to go around it, right? There's just no way to go around it. So when I start talking to people, hey, how are you? How's it going, right? How you doing? Good? Great. Glad you're doing well, right? Then you're like, so are you from here? Or let's say me, right? I use myself an example because that's what I should do. So are you from here? And if they say yes, if they say no, well, let's just talk about if they say yes, okay? If they say no, then we have to take a different approach. But if they say yes, and they are from there, then you got to say, oh, cool, right on. How long have you lived? Right? Find out how long they've lived there next, right? So you can, it's kind of like a way to get the conversation started. Look at this bitch ass fire wanting to go out. Dude, you know I'm not putting up with it. Okay, hold on. So how long have you lived here? Yeah, so have you ever heard of a girl named Kylie Rodney? Yeah, well, she was a 16-year-old girl that graduated early from high school. She was homeschooled. And she went to the senior farewell party out at Prosser Lake and then went missing. And 2 weeks later, she was found deceased in her fucking car. So what do you think about that? Right? And what exactly was it? Hold on. What do you know about it, right? What was the initial thought or conversation or understanding or assumption or presumption or whatever the fuck, okay, right? When you first had knowledge of this case or of this happening, how did you react to it, right? Because I think it begs the question of how people react to it, because I noticed that sometimes when I talk to people and I mention Kylie's name, they don't really know how to react to me bringing it up to them, right? They don't know. They're just like dumbfounded almost. They're like, the fuck is this chick really want? You know, what is she getting to? And they ponder upon that question. It's like, you could see the wheels turning in their head, right? And they're like, hey, why is this chick so interested in Kylie Rodney? I'll use this as a fucking chair for now. Oh no, I have my chair over there. But that chair might be too low. All that's in here is rocks. Well, because I'm kind of out here with just like a little halter top, and I don't want to be cold. I have to get this fire going so I can sit by it. Soon we're gonna have a smokeless fucking fire pit. I'm thinking about creating one with copper wire, copper pipes, and stone. Right? I can make it happen. I can do anything. But watch. So you can tell their wheels are turning in their head, and they don't know what to say maybe or how to even say it, right? And they're like, oh, Brian, hold on, let me see. Is it Brian? No, it's somebody else. It must be Uber picking up somebody. So they're like, hey, what the F is this chick all about, right? Why is she so exactly interested in Kylie Rodney? It's funny as shit. Because the reaction kind of like, you could tell they're confused a little bit. And then I'll say, like, look at, she was found deceased 2 weeks later in the hatchback of her car. In the trunk, which is considered the cargo area of a vehicle. So, they claimed that she was intoxicated. Toxicology did not prove that that's a fact. Okay? They claim, and they'll say, not from the hat. Oh, that's right. And without water in her lungs, she especially didn't. And they'll say, yep, sounds like a cop cover-up. Get this, right? It sounds like a cop cover-up. And then you're like, wow. You go straight from this to that, like, automatically, right? Nothing in between. Yo, it sounds like a fucking cop cover-up. It makes you think. If that's the first conclusion that people are coming to, well, there's got to be a reason, right? That means that they've already came to that conclusion within less than 5 minutes of our conversation, right? And they're like, I don't even know if I should talk to this chick, and why does she even care about the story, and what is she going to do about it, right? And how's that going to change anything? Where's my hat? I don't want to wear my hat because I don't want it to smell like smoke. Yeah.com. Anyways, probably have to go inside and get some more salad. Oh, hey, how's it going, babe? How are you? Hi, Miss G. Did you just get back? No, I've been home for hours. Actually, let me think. Almost 3 o'clock, I think we got here early. The bus, actually, the train got here early because I'm still confused on whether I took the bus there and the train back or the train there and the bus, whatever. You know what I'm saying? On the way there, I just took 2 trains. On the way back, I took the bus and then the train. And I loved riding on the bus. It was the greatest thing. Thank you for being here. How are you? And the lights were turned off in the car. No, they weren't. In the car, you mean in the car, inside the car, or the headlights? Because if you think about things in the common sense kind of way, hold on, what the fuck is going on here? Hold on. Don't fuck with my program. Hold on, I gotta figure out what this is all about. Hold up. Oh, good. So there's nothing to worry about. Okay, good. What's in here? Is there something I can catch on fire over here? Let's face it. I need this piece of cardboard. I need this piece of cardboard. Right. Oh, don't forget my little drink. I'll go back for a salad in a minute after I figure out how to get this fire to stay going. For one fucking thing. Look, it keeps wanting to go out. Everybody knows I'm not putting up with it. Yes, I believe the headlights were turned off. Interesting. So, since you said that then, we have to go to the next question, which comes to mind, right? Hi, Liberty and Justice. How are you? Good evening. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. We're having a deep discussion on what conclusions can we come up with, and is it more beneficial because Jade said something interesting, right? She goes, it's important. It's important that we have everyone's opinion so that we can find the truth, find the answers. And my question to that, I didn't say this at the time. My question to that, my question is that complicating things and making it harder to sort it out, or could it be beneficial, right? Which of course it could be beneficial, but the thing about it is, the more you speculate, right, you might be getting farther from what it is that you're trying to get to. You know, too many cooks in the kitchen. Just o'clock. It's morning where I'm at. Lol. It is. Hey, yeah, how's it going? A cop cover up for another officer or someone with lots of money. Good evening to all. Good evening to you. I hope you're doing well since we last seen and spoke. Okay. So, since you lights were turned off, you mean out the car, right? The exterior lights of the vehicle. So then I'm under also the impression, since you said that, then that so you think that Kylie or whoever, we all know that Kylie wasn't driving and she wasn't drunk, right? So does it make sense? Think about this. Does it make sense for them to say, hi, Pookie's Grammy, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us and thank you for being here. If they're claiming that Kylie was driving, does that make sense? We know that she was not intoxicated, right? Now that we know that she was tricked and fooled and that Sammy's a liar, hey, yo, okay, check this out. I need a ride home, but now you're too drunk to get home, so I'm going to find another way home. And then, but before I leave, I'm going to make sure to find you to tell you that I have another ride home and I don't need a ride home, okay? So is it logical and common sense, because Kylie was smart, she wasn't dumb, right? Does it make exact sense to think that, okay, but so then, what do you mean? So, okay, the overall picture right now that I'm getting is, okay, Kylie wasn't drunk, okay? She was intoxicated with anything else, and, well, Delta-9, nicotine, and caffeine, that's nothing, in micro amounts that they could barely even trace, right? The thing is, I'm not even buzzed or anything right now, at all. I just started my drink. Look, this is how much I got out of it, okay? And I'm not even like tired and exhausted like I've been, okay? Gotta let me know if that's any better. It won't load? How is it now? Still the same? Huh? Because it's important that we talk these things out. We have like too many gaps from the time that we have conversations and see each other till the next time that happens. You're kidding me. Well, I'll just keep trying to refresh it, and you do the same on your end so we can try to keep this going. Because it's important that we have this conversation. Because one thing that I don't like to be is like in limbo or not reaching any conclusions about anything, right? I don't like that. So you have to sort things out, like you put the uncertainty on the left and you put what's certain on the right. What is certain is Kylie wasn't intoxicated. So would Kylie offer someone a ride home if that were to be even the case and then not turn on her headlights? And the other thing is, nobody drives in neutral. You can't drive in neutral. You cannot. You cannot drive in neutral. The car is coasting. if it's an automatic. It, if it's a manual, guess what? It'll stall. Because, well, you have to have your foot on the brakes, but if you put your foot down and you put it in neutral, it's still coasting. How could Kylie been that drunk? She was not. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Didn't get to a party till after 10 p.m. What party? I mean, you're assuming then that there was a party, right? I'm trying to say, look, there was about a dozen or more parties in that area at any given time, just like there could be tonight, right? And I know what's happening with that wood. It's still wet. It's the eucalyptus, remember, from earlier this year, and then the oak, this oak right here, that got trimmed about 3 weeks ago. That's why the wood isn't burning, because it's still wet. Yes, you can't drive in neutral. The car was in neutral. Well, how do we know that? And with the lights off, how do we know that? Because, see, I know that some people don't go for this, but I believe the fire cam. Okay? Whether, I don't care how many seconds it takes frames apart from the last frame that it took the last frame, right? In my mind, most of everything that was put out is a false narrative and a false fake, and something a more serious situation. Like, in my opinion, Kylie wasn't driving the car. For example, I'm just going to tell you really quick. In my opinion, so the beginning, everybody said how very responsible Kylie is. She never drove drunk, right? Yeah, Kylie. If she didn't drive into the reservoir, so who is it that had her lights turned off and why? Because they're trying to say that Kylie drove herself into the lake. And since we know that she wasn't drunk, she wouldn't have had her headlights off, because you can't see shit without your lights on out there. You cannot. It is pitch black. Look, we were just there the night before last night, in the middle of the night, right? And I didn't want to go there in the middle of the night, in the nighttime, because I'm better able to assess in relation to where things were, or are, I should say, to what everybody thinks is what happened, right? Or say that happened. So does everything so far make, does it? I really want to hear this, but it's not loading again. So sorry, Miss G. I want to have this convo, but it's messing up. I understand. Although I don't think it's on my end for some reason. As long as we we have a hypothesis of things, or what might have happened, we still need to reach conclusions in order to rule out things that doesn't make sense. Right? See, I don't think that I don't think Sammy ever needed a ride from Kylie at all. And see, that's where they messed up. There is no confirmation. Nobody ever confirmed anything that Sammy said. The problem is nobody could disprove it either. Right? So knowing that Kylie was sober, let's just say it's a fake narrative, right? It's fake that Sammy was going to get a ride home with Kylie. The reason why that came into play is because she needed a reason to keep Kylie there longer than Mags and anybody else there that might have been familiar with any one of them, right? So we know about, okay, there is not even any confirmation that a party occurred there. In my opinion, there wasn't one. Pardon me. In my opinion, there were parties everywhere else in that area that night, except not at the sanctuary. And that leads me to the next question I want to ask you, right? Since I'm under the impression that it's a lie that there was a party at the sanctuary on the 6th of August of 2022, and nobody can prove or disprove whether or not Kylie was there. All we know that Kylie wasn't drunk. As far as I know, she did go out to Prosser, right? I, within the last day, have been questioning whether or not she was ever even at the sanctuary. Maybe, maybe not. And the reason why I say maybe, maybe not is because the sanctuary is pretty hidden. The sanctuary is hidden. People that are local don't know where the sanctuary is. They do not. Only very few people will know where the sanctuary is. From what I know, everyone that I spoke with, other than CB, okay, knows where the sanctuary is and how to get there. And you're saying, oh my God, Mrs. G, and people have already claimed that they've been partying there for decades. I don't care. That means nothing to me. Because if only a few people, right, that if you say, look at, because a lot of people will just say like this, Kylie Rodni passed away at Prosser Lake, right? When to find it unless you've been there, because even people that are from there don't know where it is. They do not, because I've asked them. I told you how I start my conversation. Hey, how's it going? Pretty cool, right? So are you from here? I'm not from here. So are you from here? I'll say, I'm not from here. I'm from the Bay Area. You know, I come here every year to bring awareness to this case, and I explain to them, blah, blah, blah. But first I ask them if they're from there. And if they say yes, I'll say, well, wow, have you ever heard of this girl named Kylie Rodni? And I know that you know about Prosser Lake, and I've heard that people have partied there for decades, right? Why would the police say they have pictures or videos of her at the party, then never share it? Well, we know that everything could be changed and modified and photoshopped and everything else these days, right? We can make the fake seem very real, in other words, okay? Or we can make a false situation seem believable, okay? Just by changing a few words around or whatever they do. So far it doesn't make sense to me that they claim that, which nobody was able to prove or disprove, Sammy claimed that she needed a ride home from Kylie because her ride was leaving, which is a bunch of crap. Why would the police say they have pictures and videos of her at the party? Well, we don't know if they did have it or if what they had was even factual to the date that we are pertaining to, right? It has to pertain to that particular date and time. And they might even be able to put a fake freaking date stamp and freaking whatever time on there. Psh, the hell is that? If people are going to claim, okay, that this and that happened, none of us know. You realize that? And for the fact alone that Sammy Smith photoshopped, listen to this, she photoshopped herself into Kylie Rodni's yearbook. Didn't anybody ever question that? Was that even brought up to the cops? Hey, do you realize that Sammy Smith photoshopped herself into Kylie Rodney's yearbook and claimed that she went to school with Kylie and claimed that they were good friends, but there isn't one freaking ounce of proof. No pictures together, none of this. You remember that whole story about, oh, I can't wait to drink a boba with her again. I'm going to give her the biggest hug and freaking knock her to the ground and give her the biggest hug she's ever had and give her so much love and tell her how much we love her and this and that, and this and that, and this and that. Why, bro? You said she was drunk and you left her there, but you made sure to find her and say, look, I don't need you to give me a ride because I never needed a ride. Just kidding. I'm not laughing because it's funny, but it's really ridiculous, actually, right? Because when we were talking to those two Truckee locals the night before last, and I said, yeah, this chick claimed that she needed a ride home from Kylie, but then minutes later said she noticed that Kylie was too drunk to get her home, so she found another ride, but made sure that she found Kylie first to tell her that she didn't need a ride. Don't you see that that's a false situation? That's completely false. 100% false. Look, if I'm going to offer to take somebody home and I end up dead in my car 2 weeks later, and they say, my God, her lights were off. Her car was in neutral. Right? And I'm found in the hatchback of my car, which is also considered the cargo area, with a cargo belt or whatever kind of belt it was, hanging out of the back tailgate of the hatchback. I mean, is that even believable? Because I think that, even Houdini might not have been able to pull that off. Okay? Just saying. You got to be a talented motherfucker if you're going to pull that shit off, okay? Listen, you mean Kylie Rodney, which is highly intelligent, or was, she offered to give somebody a ride home, but she was drunk when she did that? So, explain to me then how it was that how would she even, look, her car wouldn't have been able to go 15 feet without hitting something with the lights off. You can't see where you're going to hit a tree. Because every 5 to 10 feet or less, there's a tree. And hundreds of thousands of them. Not to mention the road itself, the terrain of the ground where they claimed that Kylie did all this. Right, so it's not logical. Yo, I'll give you a ride home. Check it out. I can give you a ride home, bro. But then they claimed that I was drunk and I ended up in the hatchback strapped down. They never mentioned the strap. But of course not, because then that would indicate in point 2 foul play. Right? They claimed that her lights was off, in which I don't believe it was, because I believe the fire cam and the lights were clearly on, because whoever was driving the car would not have been able to get the fucking car to the water unless the light was on. I don't care who the fuck they are. I don't care if they're wearing night vision. You can't drive without your lights on. Maybe in the city when there's plenty of other lights to where you can actually see what you might be running into to avoid it. Right? But not up there. And if they claim that there was 300 to 400 people at the sanctuary, they had a major traffic jam. And I mean a major traffic jam. And there would have been accidents and people's cars would have been wrecked. Hey, get out of my way, bro. You're in my way. I'm trying to drive through here. You're trying to drive through here? How are you going to do that? There's people everywhere and trees everywhere. Right? So, supposedly, Kylie was wasted, offered somebody a ride home, got in her car, never turned on the lights, and was somehow driving in neutral. Definitely not. 100% not. Now, how was it that they convinced Kylie's mom of all this? Because Lindsay's not dumb either. Lindsay isn't dumb. Is Lindsay so, I know she's intelligent, but is she intelligent? Am I just giving her the credit and the benefit of being intelligent when she really isn't? Because she schooled Kylie and Kylie graduated early from high school. I mean, do I have the wrong perception of the right person? Or is my perception wrong and there's things that I don't know, right? There's obviously things that all of us don't know, but I don't know at what point Kylie's mom discovered within herself or somehow, some other way, that Kylie wasn't drunk. Well, then she was set up. So Lindsay coming up behind Sammy, hugging her from the back, and Sammy not expecting it, right? She was like, whoa, bro, this chick is gonna like knock me out or something, right? She's pissed because I was the last one with her daughter, so she said. It's not adding up. So far, none of this is adding up. Nobody's gonna offer to take somebody else home and then be drunk and then not have their headlights on and have their car neutral. It's not adding up. It just doesn't add up. She was drunk. Well, toxicology didn't say that. She's supposed to give Sam a ride home. Well, there's no confirmation of that. Nobody ever said that other than Sam. Nobody at all. And if you're... And what the fuck comes out of that lying bitch's mouth? You're either very pure at heart or very naive in reality. This fire better get going. See, the logs are red underneath. It's just that the wood was freshly cut, so it's not wanting to burn. You see what I mean about this? And we're just now beginning. This is just the beginning of this conversation, right, that we're having. Because I'm trying to sort it all out so that you can calculate and, so you can, like, self what actually is, what logical, right? What common sense will tell us that, Kylie didn't have that much experience driving. The problem is, whether you have a lot of experience or not, especially being an unexperienced driver, especially being unexperienced, because I used to be a driving instructor. An adult sometimes will forget if they get in the car to turn on their headlights, but that's because their driving is already second nature to them. Right? Everything is automatic because you've been doing it so long. You get in the car. If it's a car that you're not used to driving, you adjust the mirrors. You move the seat back or forward. Okay? You put on your seatbelt. You adjust your mirrors. But if you have any driving experience at all, and you go to a very dark area where there is no lights, the first thing you're going to do is turn on the lights. There is a difference between book smart and street smart, but suppose a person was never educated in school and they're intelligent and they never had experience in the street and they're still smart. Or you could just change the equation and say, this person went to school, but they're not educated, right? It could go either way. The thing is, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so I offered to give somebody a ride home, but then I was too loaded to make that happen, right? Then they're claiming that I drove myself into the lake without lights. I don't know where Era's been. I haven't seen her in a long time. But it's these little details that don't seem like much to think about is extremely essential to think about it. It is essential because common sense will tell us that if you're in a dark area, you're going to want to see where you're going, what's around you, what's going on. Okay? And even being young and inexperienced, Kylie wouldn't have done that. She would not have done that. Right? But in my opinion, they changed the gearbox, the gear that the car was in. Because if they claim that the car was in neutral, the first thing that you would think of is Kylie wasn't driving. Or it should make you think that, right? It should make you think that what they're saying isn't real. Okay? Because, like, when I talked to that lady on the train, she was just getting ready to get off at the stop in Fremont. And how I started a conversation with her was like this. Yeah, Fremont's a nice area, right? It's a nice city. I wouldn't mind living here. And she said, yeah. She's like, it's been growing a lot. You know, it's been growing over the years substantially. And she goes, and most people can't afford to live here, right? So how smart is Lindsay, or is she a sheep? As a follower, do as I say, no will of her own. Well, you have to consider the fact that Lindsay was living at her dad's property with her unemployed husband, right? And her son and Kylie, whenever it was that she was there, because I'm under the impression she wasn't living there continuously. She stayed wherever she wanted, pretty much, even though she did have a room there. The thing is, we won't even get into the questions about Lindsay not questioning what they're saying the narrative was. Never mind about all that, because we can't judge a mother that's under that much despair. Okay? And I don't even have the words to express how I want to make you understand how I'm thinking or feeling, right? There is no words for that, for the foundation of that. So we got to let that go, because each one of us individually would have a different reaction if our child went missing and they were telling us some kind of bullshit narrative that we know for a fact is an impossibility, because in my mind it's impossible what they're saying. Okay? So, Fremont, this is a nice place. I like this place. I wouldn't mind living here. Yeah, most people can't afford to live here. I said, well, I live in the Bay Area, and prices are similar. It's only about half an hour away from where I live, so it's not that great of a difference as far as economical or job-wise or, you know, houses and all that. I mean, it can vary greatly from, like, Los Gatos, Palo Alto, different areas like that, from San Jose, Alviso, whatever, right? So, and then we started talking about Truckee. Then I said, yeah, I'm coming home. I'm coming back home from Truckee, and I spend a couple of days there. And I go every year, and myself and some people on the internet from YouTube try to get together over here to bring awareness to Kylie's case, in which I had briefly explained to her the situation. And like I told you, the first 2 minutes of talking to her about Kylie and the narrative that they say occurred, she's like, nope, it's a cop cover-up. Somebody is covering up for somebody else. Right? And so in those words, you're almost thinking, a cop cover-up. You mean like a cop was actually involved, or the cops is covering up just to cover it up? They don't want it talked about. they don't want to have to face the truth. So in my opinion, they took actions and steps to fool the public and make everyone think that Kylie was wasted when we know she wasn't. And to make it appear like Kylie was actually drunk, they put in the fact that, oh, the lights were off. But the car was in neutral. So you mean Kylie wasn't drunk, she didn't turn on her headlights, and she was in neutral driving? You mean from the hatchback? Strapped to the back? Because if she hadn't been strapped, she wouldn't have been on the floorboard. I mean, on the roof of the car, because the roof was right. It was upside down, so the floorboard of the car was the head, the ceiling, right, and the ceiling was the floor, right. That's the situation. We saw the video, AWP. The video they put behind a paywall for them to go back and change it. Because face it, they changed the footage on Kylie Rodney's video from when they found her under the water. Okay? They completely changed it. They blurred out things that might have been too dramatic to put online, you know, that would have been acceptable to YouTube. They had to change it so that they can make all this money and get all these reviews and get all these people to think that they're so damn great and all this and that. But remember, when AWP was done, the cops told them, kick rocks. You guys found her. Good idea. Thank you very much. We'll get her out. We can handle it from here. So what did they do? They tied something onto it, dragged it a couple of feet, some feet, however many feet there was, attempted to turn it over, and at the same time they're doing all this, they're causing all kinds of bodily damage to the car. Okay? Well, that's all somewhat intentional, or more likely than not intentional. Because, see, they have to make their unbelievable narrative seem like a reality and the truth. But they weren't too careful about planning what they were saying happened. It's an impossibility. I have to grab my sweater because I'm cold. And I have to get that fire going and see what I'm going to make to eat, because I'm cooking out here. Hold on, I'm going to go in the laundry room. I'll be right back. Look for something to wear. I have to put these clothes in the dryer. Fuck it, I'll just bring you in here with me so that you can hear what I'm saying, okay? So, we got to stay focused on this conversation because it's very important, right? We have to really stay focused on what we're thinking and saying and what we're, what conclusions we're reaching by sorting things out. Exactly. Right? Hey, unless you're able to drive from the hatchback, you mean. I'm washing my husband's clothes because he needs new clothes for the weekend for church in the morning. So we already are not, we came to the conclusion that we're not going to be judging Lindsay because of the state of mind that Lindsay was in, right? She, and not to mention the emotional upset that situation caused all the way around. I closed the door because I didn't like the cold wind coming in at me. And we're just going to leave Lindsay's reactions, or unreactions, I should say, because I thought about those words that she uttered. She said, it is, it's not me that's holding me up. It's the support of this community. Okay? So, in other words, she was describing to us the complete loss and utter despair that she was under. And that basically, if it wasn't for the support and strength of the community, she wouldn't have been able to stand. She would have fell. And just whatever. You know what I mean? Right? So that's telling us it is not by my own will and strength that I'm able to keep it together. Okay? It is not my doing that I'm holding it together. Okay? So that's an important thing to think about. Lindsay told us right then in those words right there the magnitude of the impact on her in general. Psychological, emotional, spiritual, however which way you want to put it. So that gives us the answer to your question that you had earlier. Is Lindsay a follower, or is she able to think about these things? And by her own strength and will, somehow reach the conclusion that since she's not able to have the strength on her own to hold her own self up after this tragic event happened to her daughter, we already know by those things that she's not leaving. She's being carried. Understand? She's being carried. Literally. Okay, right? So then, it wasn't Lindsay's own will that was holding her up and keeping her going. So in other words, she's almost letting us know that if it wasn't for everybody holding her up, she would have just gave up. It's like I can picture it. I can see myself in that situation. Not that I want to see myself in that situation, but that I opened up my mind and my heart to be there in that place to where you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. Right? She said it's not, if you're under the impression that I'm the one that's holding myself together, you're wrong. You're wrong. It is this community that's holding me up. That's behind me, holding me up. That wasn't hypothetical. That was literal. Understand? Literal. As in, if it wasn't for all of these people, I would have fell apart. Okay? I'd want to just lay down and stop breathing and not go on anymore. Have to grab my sweater. So she was explaining to us that not by her own will. That wasn't by her own will. So in other words, I wouldn't be strong enough to do this on my own. I thought someone said impossible for her body to float through the headrest of the seats to the back of the car. Well, the probability Hi, my love. I'll be back. I'm making something to eat. The probability of Kylie Rodney, let's say she went in the water, she was alive, right? And they claim she drowned in her car. So guess what? The probability of her running out of breath before she got to the back would be more than not, right? So what's going on with that in reality? What's going on with that in reality is what they're claiming is an impossibility that would have never occurred. Plain and simple. To counteract what they were claiming happened, it would have needed to be questioned at that time, not later, right? And Lindsay didn't have the strength or the know-how to do that. She was exhausted. And we have people blaming Lindsay for going out to eat sushi when Kylie was found. Like, bro, you mean after all the days of not eating? Because she didn't have an appetite? And you mean like not having enough sleep every night, worrying about where her daughter is? And how each day it seemed more and more unlikely that she was going to be all right? Well, if you're a mother, you'd put yourself in that position. Since we all know that we care about Kylie. We're talking 2 weeks without adequate sleep. Perhaps even, you remember what she said, Lindsay, right? I'm not a professional search person. I'll leave that to the professionals for them to find my daughter. I'm gonna put this thing on the skewer right here. I'm gonna cook it like this on the fire. So, in other words, where's my salad? Hold on. Beautiful salad. Okay. So in other words, we have already come to a couple conclusions, okay? Just in the conversation that we've been having so far for 66 minutes and 9 seconds. The clothes are in the dryer. Everything's all good. The issue is, so we already know that not by Lindsay's own strength, power, or will was she able to hold herself up. It was a facade. It was an appearance, right? You guys think I'm strong enough to be holding my head up like this and go through this traumatic experience and actually still stay functional and focused and able to discern and differentiate what's truth and what's not? No, I'm gonna give all of what I might have in my power. Since I don't have power right now, I'm weak. I just want to lay down and stop breathing. So the answer is, Lindsay was being carried. And not only was her ability to discern for herself and decide for herself, as well as act and have enough strength to do that. So everything was handed over to the people that were supposedly allegedly holding her up, right? So we settled that already. Lindsay wasn't in her own mind. So let's just say Lindsay was temporarily unable to make choices and decisions for herself due to the state of mind and emotional and mental instability of her state of being. Okay, so that's one thing that's we can just come to the conclusion of. Even still, even knowing what we know right now from what we've discussed, not what we can prove and not what's been said or hypothesized, or however you'd say that word, but by what we've just discussed and what common sense as we know it to be tells us. Right? So the next thing is, where did all this come from? And why wasn't there someone with enough intelligence out of all the people involved, and there were a lot of them, that were trying to convince or persuade, right? Everyone, not just Lindsay, but the rest of the world, that Kylie actually did this to herself. Because face it, that's what they're claiming. Even Megan Cole. Hey, Kylie is the one that drove herself out there. Kylie made the decision to drive herself to Prosser. Blame him. Kylie drove herself to Prosser. There's no way. Right? There's no way that for any reason. Is this bitch out too? Well, get the fuck out of here then. This ain't working out. I'm starting some new briquettes, because that wood isn't wet enough to keep burning. Hold on. That's a heavy ass bitch. Okay. Put some briquettes down here. And try to start the fire the right way this time. So Lindsay surrendered. Have we reached that conclusion, right? Lindsay has surrendered. She was incapable and unable to reach whatever conclusions on her own. She was unable to. Not enough strength, not enough power, tired, exhausted, hungry, in despair, and lost for everything you can imagine. So then how is it possible? How is it possible that from saying that Kylie was so responsible, would never do this, never... Okay, let's remember also something else. Hi, Linda. Thank you so much. You survived the day, thank God. Because at what exact fucking point was the turnaround or the switch? There was a switch that happened, right? They went from Kylie being such a responsible young girl that was very attentive and aware of keeping her mother in the knowing of what was happening to her whenever she wasn't at home. So Kylie was responsible. She would have never drove drunk. Yeah, but not only are they saying that she was drunk, but they're saying that she was drunk and offered to give somebody a ride home. But then guess what? Never turn her headlights on. It's after 2 here. I have to sleep. All right, Pookie Gurney. I'll see you later. Thank you for coming in and spending some time here. You know, we'll get to the bottom of this. And we'll be able to continue this discussion later on when you're able to stay. But for now, we're going to keep going with this. At what point did that happen? Who was responsible for being the convincing force or power that would change a mother's mind? Okay, I mean, you have to be a pretty persuasive individual. You can't see everyone here. What do you mean? There's 7 people here. At what point and who was responsible for changing even Lindsay's mind? Okay, August 10th, you said? So that's pretty much tomorrow, 3 years ago. Well, what the fuck? Do you hear that? Some chick is out there kissing her ass off. Because face it, that means to me that Lindsay surrendered. Never mind the fact that she gave birth to Kylie and she's the one that raised her and she knew her pretty much better than anyone else. Oh, never mind all that. Never mind all that. Because it's possible that when you're young and you're with your friends and you go out and you do things that your parents don't have knowledge that you do, right? And everybody does that. Everybody goes through a phase of growing up and going through these changes and the possibility of having secrets or not allowing your family to know everything that you do, right? Hi, Daniel. How are you? Right? Because all of us keep secrets from our families when we're growing up, right? We're not going to disclose everything that we're doing with our friends and where we go and what we do and what we say, right? Not at all. So, I'm not sure what kind of a bond, I mean a true bond, a nurturing kind of bond. Because I know that Lindsay cared for Kylie and she took the time to nurture and educate Kylie with the proper everything that whatever she thought was right for her. But also the fact that something changed, right? A switch happened that was automatic, and the way that it was accepted and not questioned seems unreal to me in a real sense, in a real way. You could say, wow, that's a really major change. Wow, I really thought I knew my kid. I was under the impression that I raised a responsible, sensible, logical human being that wouldn't be doing that. And somehow, all of that goes out the window, and now you're thinking, hey, I didn't tell my parents every single thing that I did all the time. It could actually be true that my daughter kept certain things from me that I don't know about that I have to accept because the circumstances seem to prove that, right? Okay, so let's talk about whether or not we think that Lindsay had interactions or knowledge of Sammy and Kylie not being friends. Remember, she claimed that they were friends and that they've been getting closer over the past months, the last year to the coming months, right? What are the actual likelihood that Lindsay didn't know that Kylie and Sammy weren't friends? Well, because I didn't see Sammy going to Lindsay. I saw Lindsay going to Sammy. See? Right? Think about it. It's kind of like I try to put myself in that mindset. Like, so in other words, if something happened to somebody that I claimed was a close friend of mine, and we have her mother in despair over here, I'm not thinking that her mom is going to come comfort me. It is my duty and responsibility and job to be there to comfort her mother, my friend's mom, right? But that wasn't the way it happened. It was Sammy that was comforted by Lindsay, not the other way around. Sammy should have been the one comforting Lindsay, but it didn't happen like that. It was Lindsay saying, it's okay that this happened. I don't blame you. Kids do weird things, and there's no explanation for why they do things that are weird, right? So just because of what I just said just now, could it be possible that Kylie didn't have a relationship with Sam? And so that's why Lindsay wasn't aware that they were friends, because it was never mentioned, or they were never seen together, and they have no pictures together, and they never went on vacations together. It wasn't like Daisy and Sammy, right, where there's photographs of them together and rodeo or whatever it is, right? They spent time together. They have actual pictures together. So, in other words, Lindsay was under the impression that Kylie was holding things from her and was interacting and involved with people that she wasn't aware of. So anyways, I'm just going to accept the fact that my daughter kept things from me. And that's it. We all know Sammy's not a great actor. She sucks at acting. Why would Lindsay surrender her daughter that she spent her whole life, right? Educating, teaching her how to be decent, a human being, how to be responsible, right? What kind of a relationship did Lindsay have with Kylie after all, right? Because if it was such that, like they said, oh no, Lindsay's gone before to pick up Kylie when she was buzzed and she went to a party and this and that. Lindsay never said that. Never had she ever said that. Pardon me, I have to douse these briquettes so they can get going. My husband's waiting to be with me, but I have to not only be emotionally but psychologically settle down before I can settle down, if you know what I mean. And it's hard to be in one state of mind, right, and be somewhere else physically. So it's kind of like a struggle a little bit. But so what I'm trying to say is, Lindsay chose, in my opinion, she chose to accept the fact that they were trying to persuade her that Kylie was one way and not exactly the way that she believed that Kylie was her whole entire life. Do you know what kind of power that is? That's a very powerful thing, because you're completely like going, hey, all the time that I spent in dedication to doing the right thing, I guess I was wrong. I was under, it's a misconception about everything. And the common misconception in this part of it is saying, in which was Sammy who persuaded Lindsay and the world that Kylie wasn't who everybody really thought that she was. So at this point, is it Sammy that's the actor, or was it Kylie? Was it Sammy that had everybody fooled, or was it Kylie? Right? Because up to this point, we're thinking Kylie is one certain way, and then by the looks of things, she's completely something else. Well, that's a really quick change for my liking. I don't know if I can accept that in reality, right? I'm just speaking from being who I know I am. I'm not sure if I would have been that easily convinced after all. So you mean like Lindsay just surrendered everything that she's worked towards and wanted for Kylie, right, in her life, to just all of a sudden be in acceptance of this new point of view and new should I say this, of the news. Let's just call it news, something that you didn't know before, right? Something that you just found out. Well, her body wouldn't have floated because she didn't swallow any water. I mean, see, eventually her body would float because of the gases that would be building up. But in the initial part of it, without her being strapped down, she would have came to the floorboard of the car, which was above her head. Which we know that wasn't how it happened. Kylie was found with her body touching the ceiling of the car. She was touching the ceiling of the car. And they claimed that she had not metamorphosis, but what do you call it? You know, when you're laying a certain way and the blood settles in that area because the pressure and the weight is all on that side. Right? First of all, it wasn't the belt. First of all, the belt was imperative to hold her down, because the what would require for her to sink, right, didn't exist. Okay? Something would have to weigh you down to hold you underwater, or you would have to ingest water to make you heavy enough to sink. Right? From backseat to the cargo area. She was in the cargo area. Right. So, but the probability of Kylie drowning in the car and making it to the hatchback and be in the position that she was, not a likelihood that would occur, in my opinion. Okay? Because she would be running out of breath before then. Because unless you're ready for something, like, say, when you're diving into the pool, you know you have to hold your breath. In order to have enough breath to get you to the other side of the pool, or you can't just jump in the water, right, without holding your breath or knowing how to hold your breath. Okay? Yeah. She wouldn't have floated anyways because she didn't have the weight to hold her down. Okay? After 2 weeks, she would be at the top of the surface of the water unless something was holding her down. Okay? Not the surface of the water, but the floorboard of the car. So instead of her being how she was, she would be suspended. You understand what I mean? She would be suspended like you would be in space. Without gravity, right? You're just in suspension. Like your arms are out in front of you and they're just floating. Your legs do the same thing. And the rest of your body follows, except for your head. Because your head would be heavy and it would be hanging down. So, for many reasons, but mainly for the reason that she did not ingest water, her lungs didn't carry the weight that would cause her to sink, which is why the car was imperative to hold her underwater so she wouldn't come to the surface and be found, and the seatbelt was imperative to hold her down so that when she was found, it looked like she actually sunk when she didn't sink. You understand? Right? They wanted everybody to think that Kylie drowned. So they made a way for her body to be held down versus being in freely suspended without any restrictions that would keep her in that position for however long. We'll call it 2 weeks. Right? Basically, that's how it is. Hi, Kathleen. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us. We're kind of going through, we're dissecting the narrative. We're dissecting the narrative because I don't like it. Now I'm trying to find a lighter. Can I find a damn lighter out here? I thought I just had a damn lighter. What the fuck, bro? It's gonna make me mad. I don't have my shit together. Fuck. What the fuck? Oh, bitch. I gotta find a lighter. And if I try to grab me, he's gonna be like, where are you going now? Still cooking. I'm hungry. Because I don't feel like eating my peanut butter jelly sandwich. I might have it later on as a snack, but I need something salty to eat. The last stuff that was salty that I had was this morning, right? But, so in other words, we know that Lindsay at some point surrendered her whole everything, her understanding, her, everything, right? How it really truly was, she surrendered all that. She surrendered. There was no way for her to do anything different but surrender, right? Gotta find a way to light that shit up or I'm gonna give up on it in a minute. I'm not wanting to fight with that fire. It just pisses me off. It pisses me off that they were able to convert Lindsay into thinking that Lindsay didn't know who Kylie really truly was, because that's what happened. They convinced Lindsay, like, hey, you thought you knew your daughter? Well, no, you don't. Really. Because face it, that's what they did. I'm trying to find a damn lighter. Hold on. Is there a damn lighter here somewhere? I'm losing my mind trying to find a fucking lighter. How can I not have a lighter? Am I alright? Is the situation normal or what? What the fuck? OMG. Why can't I find a lighter? It's gonna piss me off in a minute. Oh, there's one. Hello, thy lovely. Seems to work fine with me. Make sure that it's not gonna fault. Hold on. Out, my mom. I don't trust you coming in here. No, my mom, you're not cute, okay? You're definitely not cute. Sometimes you're cute, but right now you're not even cute, okay? Good thing he's snoring. If he wasn't snoring, I'd never be able to walk by him like I did. He's out. Of course, he did get up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock this morning. This is the last time I'm going to try to light this bitch ass fire, and if it doesn't do it, that's it. I'm going in to cook my shit inside. Because I've had it with this bullshit game. Okay, I've already spent too much time on this as it is. But every time I do this, it's because I forget the wood is still wet. Have you ever tried to burn wet wood? It doesn't work out too good. Okay, let's see what happens now. Oh my God. Ridiculous. Just damn will do it all right. Fuck. Piece of junk. It's pissing off. I think it's because I didn't put it in the right thingamajig. If it had holes on the bottom, it would have already been lit a long time ago. But it doesn't have holes on the bottom. Because what I'm using isn't meant to barbecue or be used for cooking, right? It's just my crazy ideas. Because I like to experiment and see what works and what doesn't in case I want it or have to do it someday, see if it'll work out or not, you know, right? So, it's kind of like, so we know that they somehow convinced Lindsay that everything that she understood to be about her daughter was fake, right? Turns out she didn't know. 9-inch gap, not floating through that. Nope, not happening. That's right, not happening is right. Nope. Even if you were the most experienced swimmer, okay, and prepared yourself, I mean, breath-wise, like, I'm going to have to go through this experience right now, so I'm going to have to calculate how long I might have to hold my breath, right, to survive this circumstance or situation. And if something is going to happen unexpectedly, that means you're not ready. You don't have time to go and then dive underwater. Because when you go, that's the extra breath that you're going to need, depending on the duration of the time that you will need to hold your breath to successfully see this through. We know that didn't happen. Hypothetically, we're discussing different. Because remember, Jade said it's important that we all discuss our different opinions so we can find the truth and reach a conclusion of what may have happened. And what I was thinking was, is that going to further complicate the situation, or will it bring enlightenment to what we're seeking to find? Because it could do either one, depending on whose perspective it's actually coming from. Well, we know that certain people's intent only had one purpose. To deviate from the truth, right? We have to deviate from the truth. Holy shit. The problem with deviating from the truth is you got to know what's probable and possible. Sometimes, all things are possible, okay? anything is possible. Landing on the moon, okay? Making a rocket ship go out to outer space and then come back and just carefully like position itself right where it needs to land and land there. Right? Well, if you would have said, hey, I can actually make a certain object do what would have been impossible to make happen, pardon me, actually happen. Sorry for the gap in my speech. My mouth is full. So now we know that Lindsay was converted from her understanding of not only her relationship with Kylie, but her overall her whole belief system switched. Good night, Linda. Have a good one. Who would have that much power over a mother? Well, I happen to think that Lindsay maybe was busy with other things. Okay? Because had Lindsay not accepted or had the change of heart that she did, then maybe, just maybe, the outcome of what we know so far would have been much different than what it is. And I mean, much more different than what it is. Was Lindsay complacent, afraid of being charged or jailed or fined? Well, they wouldn't be wanting to fault the mother and holding her responsible if they themselves want to convince the mother and the world that something that didn't happen happened. But what are the chances and the probability, not possibility, because I just said anything is possible, but is it probable that Kylie is responsible as they claim that she was in the beginning, would say, hey, never mind what I said. It's possible that Kylie got loaded, okay? And it's possible that Sam was correct. She didn't have any power over Kylie. Kylie could have decided to get drunk, and then it's not Sammy's fault that she doesn't have any control over Kylie. She had to save herself. Because that's basically what she's portraying to the world, right? That's what she's portraying to the world in my view. When she's coming up behind Sammy, hugging her from behind around her neck, she's saying, it's okay. I don't blame you. You couldn't have controlled Kylie. She chose to drink, whatever, right? Versus questioning the whole thing that was being said and portrayed to her, and stood up not only for Kylie, but for herself. Okay? No, something is not right with the situation. I know for a fact my daughter would have never did this. She wouldn't be offering to give anybody a ride unless she was herself sober. And she would have never driven if she was intoxicated in the first place. She would have called for a ride and I would have picked her up and her friends. Because Lindsay was saying, like, thinking maybe, hey, if I don't accept this, are they going to freaking hold me responsible? If I don't accept this, because remember, the cops didn't have a clue or a freaking hint to go on. Okay, they were waiting for it to fall out of the sky into their lap. So, could Lindsay have been thinking that way, right? I'm forced to accept this, or I'll be held responsible and possibly jailed and taken away from my family and my son for jeopardizing my daughter's life by allowing her to be out past curfew. Because face it, when she's claiming that Kylie called her to ask for an extension to her curfew so that she can be late coming home, it wasn't because she was intoxicated. She never said that to Lindsay. Mom, I'm a little bit buzzed and I got to stick around a little bit longer to sober up some. The understanding about the phone call or the text was, everything's cool. I'm just going to be home a few minutes late, or may I please be late? Okay, no problem, blah, 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 right? Well, knowing that the second text would come in as she's leaving to alert her mother, I'm on my way home now, never happened. It never happened. So, I'm thinking now there was never a party at the sanctuary. It's possible that Kylie's life could have been taken somewhere else, away from Prosser, away from the sanctuary, and I don't mean at Boca or anywhere else, because we literally have 4 hours that we don't know what was happening with Kylie. Allegedly. From about 6 to 6:30 when she was at Hurstel to 10:30 when she allegedly arrived at the party, allegedly with Mags. Right? That's the story. That's the narrative. She arrived an hour after Sam got there. Allegedly, Sam got there about 9 o'clock, she said. Of course she did. And she left at, what? 12:25. Right. People are too quick to believe everything they hear. And that's a very real possibility. Criminal charges could have been filed on Lindsay by the state or the county, holding Lindsay responsible for being irresponsible, raising Kylie. Our first job as mothers is to keep our children safe. Period. There is nothing else. You know, being a good human, having good manners, saying yes, ma'am, thank you, ma'am, and no, please, thank you, yes or no, right? Sir, ma'am, or whatever. That comes second to keeping them safe. But what if you feel like your freedom and the life that you're living becomes jeopardized by the actions that you took, which were, excuse me, irresponsible. Because it was an hour after curfew. Curfew is actually 10 o'clock in California. You mean Truckee has its own laws? Because if Truckee has its own laws extending curfew hours to a different time than the state does, we have problems. We have problems. So, in other words, Lindsay would need to be willing to accept repercussions for her choices that night. The fact that it was already an hour past curfew when she allowed Kylie to be late, when she should have told her, I'm sorry, you're late already, you need to leave now and get home within the next half an hour. I'm sorry. Well, that is considering if the text even came from Kylie, right? And you'll hear people saying, we don't even know if Lindsay saw Kylie that day. Really? How come? Lindsay said that she seen her in the morning. Why ever would she lie? You believe that she would lie about that? Oh, I said I seen my daughter, but I really didn't. Well, I don't think Lindsay would have motive or reason or otherwise to change the truth for in exchange for not being held responsible for the choices that she made that night. So not only did she not tell Kylie, look at, you're already late, come home now, please, right? But she also didn't force herself to stay awake, okay, for a half of an hour or less for Kylie to send a second text saying, okay, Mom, I'm on my way home now. Because remember, Lindsay herself claimed that Kylie would have called to alert her, look, I'm finally coming home now. I'm leaving now. So I'll be there by this time or that time. And by the way, Mom, on the way home, I'm dropping off Sammy. Okay, because her ride left earlier, and I said I'd stick around and be able to take her home. So, when Sam said my ride was leaving, I wanted to stay at the party longer because my ride was leaving. What ride? Is Sammy trying to claim at that time that, pardon me, whoever was supposed to take her home, they were leaving? Or you mean, right? They were taking off, so Kylie felt kind of like not so much responsible, but kind of like, well, since I'm already here, I might as well take you, right? Since I'm already here. Could it be possible that Mags left and Kylie didn't say, hey, I'm just going to stick around and give Sam a ride home because, or was Mags her ride? Because Mags went there with Kylie, but, right? Was Sammy supposed to leave with Mags and Ross, but they ended up leaving sooner because of these 5 guys in bong rips without Ross being present? That was a great upset, right? And if you think that that wasn't pre-planned and predetermined beforehand, you're very naive. You're just very naive, in my opinion. Because everything that happened that night was methodical and planned out and even acted out and practiced, and they did dry runs. Okay, they did dry runs. How long is this going to take to do, right? What's it going to take to make this happen to where, hey, there isn't a chance that we're ever going to get caught for this? You mean they did a script and never even attempted to calculate time or who might be in the area? No. Because if the witness who saw the car going into the water with its lights on would have called the police down to Prosser that night, and they started an actual investigation. Okay. Also, hey, you're there, you saw the car go in the water. The lights would have been on for a few minutes, maybe, right? You have a phone. Take your phone out, record it. Drive over to the other side of the lake and record it. Record the lights under the water so that you can prove to the cops, look, there's the car I seen go in the water. Look, you can see their headlights are on under the water. After all, 14 feet's not that deep. Again, we have a situation where the witness was drinking and she was afraid of being in trouble for being out there drinking. Well, she wouldn't have been unless she was so intoxicated that it prevented her from being a responsible adult person. Sure, but it doesn't matter because you're not calling the police down there to investigate you, right? You're calling the police down there to investigate a crime that you have made witness happened. The cops being there to bust her for actual drinking after she got off work with her friends, they would have had to drink a lot of booze, right, to be held responsible. They would have been having to be intoxicated out of their minds and then given the field sobriety test to see if they're able to function and walk straight, right? How acute is their vision and their responses? So it would be 2 separate incidents that would require 2 separate incident numbers that would have to happen separately and not at the same time or together. See? So she's assuming that because she would call to report a crime, the cops would investigate her for doing criminal activity, which would be what? Drinking while driving. Since they were out at the lake and she was behind the wheel of the car and they had alcohol, right? And alcohol would have been on her breath. Hey, unless you're above 0.8, you're within legal limit. And she claimed they had a bottle of wine. But that doesn't seem like you're intoxicated if you're sharing a bottle of wine with 2 other people. If you're sharing a bottle of wine with 2 other people, unless you're completely lightweight, it's not going to make anyone think that you're so intoxicated that you're an irresponsible person that you're going to be driving drunk. The number 1 priority, if the police were to show up, is to investigate a car going into the water. Not somebody not the person that's drunk that's calling to report the crime. The number one thing would be to investigate the car going into the water, right? Because like I said, it would have to be two separate things that they would have to do, in which either or would be related to the other, right? The first thing wouldn't be at all related to the second one. And that's just the facts of life. So I want you to think about all these things that we talked about tonight, and what seems possible and probable, and the power of coercion and persuasion. The power of coercion and persuasion. Okay? Thank you all so much for being here. We're going to keep seeking the truth and the light and bring what we can into the light for Kylie's justice. Okay? But I want you to think about too much could be overwhelming, and sometimes a little bit at a time is better than everything all at once, right? So, probability and possibility and the power of coercion and persuasion. I adore you all. Thank you for being here, giving me your time and attention when you could be anywhere else and you choose to be here. Thank you for caring about Kylie. It means a lot to me. Thank you for accompanying me on my trip, giving me support. Just in general, thank you so much. God bless you all. See you next time. Good night. Ciao for now. We love you, Kylie. Still trying. Won't give up. And F you, Megan Cole.